Well, thanks for doing this
Good.
morning. We appreciate it.
Good.
Are you seeing that wire down low?
No, I don't see anything.
So it's going to be
below
out.
steps.
Okay, it's going to be out of the shop then. Okay.
Oh no, wait a minute.
Okay. This is what.
Is that? Yeah, that's.
what I'm
I do see
talking
that
about.
wire.
Okay.
This one?
Yeah.
Here, I'll hide it.
There you go.
How's that?
That's,
That better?
yeah. Much better.
Yeah, that's good.
Despite all the technology, we want it to look like there's nothing there, but
You want to take a look, John?
looks very good. Not bad. Not bad at all.
I wore blue for you today.
Well, good. Let's see. We might want to do. Could you let's come around the back
Yeah, me too.
and pull down the jacket just a little bit.
Is that better?
Just a little bit. There you go. There. That's good.
Okay.
We're rolling.
Okay. Well, I'd like to start a little bit at the beginning. I believe, if I recall correctly, you mentioned your parents when you were talking in your acceptance remarks about some of the values that they imparted to you when you were a young person growing up. What were the kind of values that shaped your early years and have served you well in adult life?
Jack, I was born and raised in a small town in north central Indiana, Culver, Indiana. It's actually home of the Culver Military Academy, which is a prominent private school. It also has a lake, but I was actually, my father and my grandfather were in the agricultural sector, had a small seed company and a farm. And so I kind of grew up really in an agricultural environment. I was one of four boys. I was number two. And we really kind of didn't have a lot, but we grew up in a way that hard work was just part of what we were expected to do. It was part of our daily life, getting up early. And in fact, I still get up early to this day, and am in work by 6:30 because that's the way I started out in my life. And things like honesty, integrity, hard work were just part of our routine. And we as one of four boys, we all learned to get along together over time, although we had our normal times that we would fight and argue. But that was really a way of, I think, finding your boundaries as you're growing up and learning to work and understand others. And again, that's something that is part of the family environment that was helpful to us.
Growing up in a rural background, a rural area, what led you to the financial business, the financial sector? Was there an early interest in it?
Well, there's my grandfather's cousin happened to run the local bank. And I called him Uncle Will. He wasn't really my uncle, but he was known to everybody in that area. And as a kid, I used to take my report card down to him, and I'd have pretty good grades, and so he'd give me $1. I mean, and that was worth a lot of money at that time. This is a time when you 20 cents to go to the movies. And so I was exposed to banking early, but I really didn't think much about it. I had gone to Northwestern to college, and after Northwestern, I was in the service for a while. And I came back, and while I could have gone back to Indiana, that was not a place where there were a lot of job opportunities other than to work in a small family business. I wanted to try something different. So I came down into the city and interviewed at a number of different organizations, banks, and I thought about banking because I wasn't certain what I wanted to do, but it was a way to get exposed to a lot of different organizations, companies. And so while I looked at brokerage firms, I looked at Procter & Gamble and Illinois Bell at the time, and just any kind of company, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I ended up with a number of job offers and came to Northern because I felt I'd have a breadth of experience. So I was exposed early. I wouldn't say that drove my decision, but I understood a little bit about what banking was all about. And it seemed a place where I could kind of get a start and maybe eventually do something else. But of course, I never did. Stayed here.
What was the bank like in, was it 1970 when you came here?
Yeah, I just got out of Fort Benning, Georgia, out of jump school, and my head was shaved, and I interviewed here, and it was quite an experience because of the formality at the time. And Northern was probably not nearly as diverse then as it is now, and it was a very high quality institution, but one that where again formality, because the founding family was still running the business and had an impact in it like that. But the people were terrific, absolutely terrific, very genuine, took a real interest in me as an individual, and I really thought that maybe this was a place at least to begin my career, and that's why I started here.
We'll talk about the rise up the corporate ladder. What were some of the positions that challenged you early on?
Well, I was very lucky at the beginning. I took a job in what at that time was called the Bank and Corporate Services Division. Some would refer to it as the cash management area of the Northern. And we were one of the leaders in working with large corporations in determining ways they could accelerate their cash inflow through a technique called lockboxes, and they could use controlled disbursements, and they could learn how to manage their cash, the movement of money in and out better. And this group was a consulting group. We would go out and work with companies and examine how they did things and come up with recommendations on how they could improve their cash flow and how much money they could save. So again, I was early in on the ground floor of this business, and it afforded me the opportunity not only to understand how companies worked, but I also needed to understand how our operations work. So I started to really learn the business from the inside out. And what happened is I would start to go out and work with our relationship managers who were out talking to corporations around the country. They would see the value that not only myself but others in our group could bring to that relationship and developing new business. And so I got in again at the ground floor of a business that really took off. We developed a lot of very strong relationships, and it allowed me actually after a couple of years to manage a group very early on, very young at my time, to be able to oversee and manage people.
This has always been, though, a very conservative kind of enterprise here, or institution. And yet, now, some 30 years later, you've taken it globally. And with the volatility of the world markets and everything, that must have been quite a departure for a lot of the culture around here.
Well, the Northern, while there is some conservative aspects to it in terms of how we manage some risk, it's always been very progressive. We were one of the first banks to move to automation to the computer. We actually did, when we were allowed to, expand overseas. We've changed the way we've done that. But what we've done and what's different probably is we've really focused on what we do well and what we do differently than others. And that's allowed us to really evolve through a really changing financial services environment, one where there's been a lot of consolidation. And Northern has been able to be very successful during that period, partly by focusing on what we do well and then taking that and going to where the markets are. And what's happened is in the global custody business, which we are a major player in, we have been able to really take what we had developed initially domestically and move it around the world as those markets have changed and the investing patterns have really broadened in various countries around the world to include investments around the world and the need for our services. So our globalization really has followed the needs and then the clients that we have and their needs.
When you talk about the company, though, you're talking about you talk about a lot of the corporate values when the need for community investment, for community partnerships here in the Chicagoland area. I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, if you would. This is a company that feels very strongly about the people and the community it serves.
We have, we've always had a heritage of giving back. We have really strengthened that a lot. We have a business model that really focuses on the community, and our private banking business, of which we're one of the really leaders in the United States. Part of what we want to do is get close to people in the community, and by doing that, we were able to establish a reputation as an organization that cares about our employees, cares about our clients, cares about our shareholders, and cares about our communities that we're in. And our people, those values of how you care really resonate well. And it allows us as an organization to really, I think, penetrate in and really get people to understand the value of giving back. Because it's a wonderful trait. And it pays actually dividends from a business perspective too. Because people want to do business with those who they know really care about them. And that's what we've been able to do. And we get our people in all of our offices, and in Chicago, obviously, which is our headquarters, are very involved with all the organizations that serve this community. And we give back not just money, but time. And our people are involved in tutoring programs. They're involved in helping lead many of the organizations. They're involved in helping to improve the lives of the people. And we think that's a great trait.
You're doing a lot of work in terms of improving the quality of life here through the Chicago Public Schools. I know there was a major gift there, but as you say, there's more than just giving money. There's a personal involvement in people. Could you speak to that a bit more?
Well, it's a bit like how you think about the United Way, or it's a bit about how do you think about the school systems. You want to get people engaged, and when they get engaged, that's when people feel the transformation within themselves of what it means to help others. And that's what we've done. We have, in effect, through the United Way, we have celebration and caring events where our people go out and will help an agency in terms of whatever their needs might be. But more to the really, I think, the substance of education in this city. Our people are out there helping to tutor young kids. They will get involved in the school programs, and many times it might be online. They'll go on an online system in the afternoon and really go back and forth with the kids, and then meet with them, maybe once every quarter. But the kids get to know the tutors through the computer, and some of them go actually right in front of them. So it's a part of really engaging and helping out. And education is the most fundamental need of any society, and it's been one that's been really tragically, I don't want to say neglected, but it's been difficult in some of the environmental areas where when I say environmentals, where the families are not, may not be totally full in terms of having a mother and a father, or the parents may not be working, and so we try to help out where we can to help in the education.
Well, apart from the individual aspect of it, you've also worked at the leadership level as well.
Yes.
You've been an advisor to the mayor, to the chief of the school system here. What kind of a responsibility does corporate America have to its schools, and how are you doing that here in Chicago when you talk with, we've seen the school system go from one of the worst in the country in the past few years to one of the better ones under the reorganization and reform plan.
Jack, first of all, we've got a long way to go in the education system. We've got, as you know, probably the best universities in the world, but some of the grade schools and high schools really need help, and particularly in the urban areas. And And what we have really seen is we feel like the corporations, we're looking at our future workforce. These are people that are going to come to work at Northern in the future years, and we want them to be as well educated as possible. And by giving the resources now, both of time and money, we're going to help ourselves long run. And I think all businesses really are recognizing that. I've been very helpful in helping to be involved with some of the Renaissance programs in Chicago to really help the public schools. And we do this, really partly because we think it's important for us longer run as well as the communities.
I want to go back and touch a little bit about touch on corporate values, stressing ethics and diversity. The city of Chicago and the surrounding area have changed dramatically and demographically in recent years. How is the company trying to embrace that changing demographic and reflecting that back to the people it serves?
Well, first of all, you mentioned earlier about the fact that we're a global enterprise, and we think about ourselves more broadly than just a business, but how we relate to our communities. If you really step back and think about it a little bit, we all are reflective of the environment we're in. And what we need to do is learn and understand about that environment so we can serve our clients better. Recognizing that there is a diverse workforce, not just in Chicago, but we go to India, you go to Singapore, you go to Japan, you go to the UK, you go to different parts of the United States. There are differences in each of those communities. Go to Miami, Florida. There's a different workforce there. And so we have to reflect what's going on in that community so that we can best understand our clients and get the best employees for the Northern to serve those clients. And diversity is a real strength. Diversity has a lot of different connotations. I feel diversity really means inclusion for all, and really understanding and celebrating the values and the differences, but doing that in a way where as a team you get stronger because you're getting more input from more different peoples with a different viewpoint, and then you can come up with the best solution because of that. If you're only listening to a narrow segment, you're not going to always have all the best input and may not make the right decisions.
One of the things I've heard about this organization is that you want to give people the understanding, the feeling that what they have to say actually matters, and that you're listening, and that you're really taking that feedback seriously here. That people actually feel like they're being listened to, and their comments matter.
Well, listen, it's all about how you want to lead in an organization and how you expect your managers and leaders in different parts of the organization to really be successful. And you aren't successful by putting yourself in a little silo and only listening to a few people. I don't mean to say this, but you can be manipulated if you're not careful. You're better getting the views of everyone and creating an environment where they feel comfortable in really giving and in sharing in their attitudes and views, not only about the company, but about the environment that they're in, about how the clients are being served, whether there's suggestions on what we can be doing better there, what products and services we need going forward. So listening to your own people is a great place to start. Listening to your clients and listening to your people are really critical. In fact, we call our people, our employees, our partners, because that's the way we view them.
I need to ask how we're doing on time. It's all right.
We're at 7:56.
Okay. I'll ask a couple more questions. Back to your engagement in civic life. You're involved in a lot of different enterprises. You talked a little bit about United Way, but I know that you've also worked a lot with Museum of Science and Industry, Lyric Opera. Talk about, there's another side to you beyond the financial community.
Well, I have, again, part of this is all around the leadership all of us show, and then how others will look at what you're doing and try to follow and emulate what you're doing. So if I'm not involved with organizations that are important to the community, how do I expect others to be involved? I don't really want to ask anybody ever to do something that I wouldn't do. In fact, that's one of the things I learned early on, and I've done about everything. So the reality is that I've been engaged with a lot of organizations around the city that have been important in terms of making Chicago a great place, not only in serving some of the underserved or dealing with education, but also dealing with how do you make Chicago a better place for all to really be a world-class, top-notch city. And the museums, the cultural side, education, whether it's a university or whether it's high schools and grade schools, those are all important facets, and I've been involved in that. Healthcare, another area that I've been involved in a major way. So I try to spend time. I've added these over the years. I can do this and manage a number of different requirements, I think, out there and do it in an effective way.
As you look back on a career at one organization, that's rare in today's life. When you think about a lot of folks being told in college you may have to change career paths 4 or 5 times before you retire. How do you feel about being able to spend your entire professional career here at one place?
Well, I'm not certain that when I started at Northern, I felt I didn't know where I'd be over the course of the next 30 years. I didn't know I'd ever get into the job that I was in the roles and responsibilities I've had. Some of that has happened. Some of it's been luck. Some of it's been hard work. And there's a little bit about being in the right place at the right time. The reality is that I think all of us really start to find comfort in where we are and the kind of organizations and the values that it espouses. And Northern, maybe somewhat unique, has a number of long-serving people in the organization. We just had a Quarter Century Club celebration earlier this year. We had over 100 people that I gave watches to that have been here over 25 years. And it gives you an idea. And we constantly have that kind of representation. And I might add 2 of the recipients of those watches were blind, that have worked for us for 25 years. Think about that, and that back to the diversity and what that means in the kind of environment you're trying to create.
As we close, what has given you the largest amount of personal satisfaction in life? You've had a wonderful career here. You've got a wonderful family. You've got a wonderful life and civic engagement. Yeah.
Actually, I have 2 granddaughters. One was just born a couple months ago. One's about 2.5. And when you see your family, and Northern is my family too. I mean, I feel as strongly about our partners around the company and their lives and what they do, and I share their joys and their sorrows in the same way. But back to my family, they're very important because that's a foundation for me, and seeing my family continue to grow, it's terrific. And if you're ever a grandfather, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about.
Exactly so. As we close, is there anything I didn't touch upon that you'd like to make sure we get on the record? I think we've covered quite a bit of ground, but is there anything else that we haven't touched upon?
Well, I would just comment. I've been honored by the state of Illinois in a way that is very humbling, and I might add, there are so many people in the state who are probably more deserving than I am in terms of what they have been able to give back to. And there are people at Northern who are just as deserving that give back every day. And I just feel like in some ways I've been a little bit lucky to be in a certain position where the visibility is higher, but we shouldn't forget about all the people that do good in this community, I mean, and around the state and around the country every day. And those are the ones that hopefully my recognition is really reflective of all their good work, and I accept it on their behalf, really.
Well stated. And I think that's one of the great things about this academy. When you look at the breadth and the scope of the people who have been honored by it over the years, it does really sort of kind of set the bar and encourages other people to do the same, to really get out there and work hard.
Great.
Thanks so much for
Jack, thank you. Appreciate it. No, thank you.